The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
The culture war will not be fought on the physical battlefield. Instead, it will be fought on the digital plane, where words are as devastating as heavy artillery, and ideals can annihilate an entire population. If this sounds extreme, well, it's because it is. Our entertainment landscape is changing, and not for the better. As times change, so do ideas about what's right and wrong, but unlike the past where the majority agree on virtue, today a small coterie of agenda-driven half-wits try to dictate what's just and make up lies, ruin lives, and cause panic just to further their motives. Over the past few years, we've seen the culture war come to geek culture. As we know, it started in 2014 with video games, then comic books and Star Wars, and now it's everywhere. All of our entertainment is infected. Ask yourself, has your favorite thing become a chore to enjoy because of garbage writing, poor characters, and creators attacking you because you don't share their worldview on literally everything? Well, if you answered yes to any of this, then it's not just you. There are millions of disenfranchised fans dealing with the same issues. In 2019 alone, Marvel took a nosedive, Game of Thrones fell apart, comedy died again, and Star Wars, well, it's still trash. We've also seen them. Who is them? Who are they? I'm not sure how to... never mind. We've also watched Rambo and Dave Chappelle get dinged too. Dinged? Dinged for what? Not conforming to this ideological groupthink online. This new wave of garbage ideas seems to permeate the way our entertainment is judged. This small, vocal minority is trying to dictate what entertainment should be about. If it doesn't conform, then try to destroy it, and in extreme cases, scare you away from it. The latest victim, well, victim is too strong because this man is no one's victim. The latest target for this sort of coordinated charge is Joker, the newest DC film starring Joaquin Phoenix and Robert De Niro. Early buzz was hugely popular. Advanced word of mouth was praising this film as Oscar material and the best of the year. But then something changed. There was an oddly synchronized effort to tear this film apart, and all articles began to warn you to stay away for a litany of excuses. All of them? Dumb. You shouldn't see Joker this weekend. Director Todd Phillips' Joker arrives in theaters Friday with plenty of controversy stirred by Phillips himself, along with the risk of an active shooter in some locations. Is a movie worth the price of admission when this is a factor? I won't see Joker. Not this weekend? Not ever. Even without the active shooter warnings, possible at unspecified locations screening the film, which stars Joaquin Phoenix as Batman's most famous villain, DC and Warner Brothers' latest entry into their comic book movie canon is problematic at best, incendiary and dangerous at worst. It all brings up a valuable question in the long-standing debate about the responsibility of filmmakers to an audience and what their films may or may not incite with them. It's a movie that, when it's not receiving the themes and plots of Taxi Driver and Kings of Comedy, and perhaps missing the cautionary tale aspects of them, it's chronicling the fall of a very disturbed aspiring comedian/citizen of Gotham City who suffers from a tic that makes him laugh inappropriately, as he ascends to infamy by way of crime, terror, and homicide. The movie tries to give sympathy to this anti-arc, this person shunned by society in a way that violently turns him against it, because people didn't find his jokes as funny or as worthy of their applause and attention as he felt or believed they should. Sympathy for a guy whose ultimate coping skill should put a gun in his hand and fire in the name of self-righteous anarchy. This is dangerous. Is it dangerous on purpose? You're making some broad generalizations because you haven't seen the film and you won't. There's an ongoing cycle of taking offense in our culture. Someone is offended by one thing, then another group or person is offended by the offense taken and they feel trapped by the initial offense. We get a backlash, then a backlash, and then soon we all have whiplash. And it just seems to go on with the name-calling, snowflakes, incels, stuff on message boards, but without anyone trying to hear another message. Do Joker and Todd Phillips have a message they're trying to impart? Or is the message just the chaos? To combat some criticisms instead of facing it, people often employ strawman arguments and false equivalencies. It's not a stretch to suggest this is part of what's going on when Phillips suggests woke culture is the reason he left the comedy world to make Joker. In recent interviews, Phillips comes off as someone who doesn't like that people are asking certain questions about his movie. These feel like the kind of questions that would be core to the conception of a project in the first place. Questions like, why make a movie about a murderous criminal that endeavors the spotlight after feeling his attempt to earn it has fell short? Who is this movie for? Should we really make a movie to that degree that both celebrates and decries what Joker does in light of the Colorado shooting? There are debates about how much violence in entertainment connects to violence in real life. This movie does a little more than just depict violence. It depicts it in a manner and a fashion that sets it apart. On purpose? By accident? Do we hold those filmmakers responsible for the messaging? Okay, writer, well, you said you weren't going to see the movie, so how do you know these things? It's all part of a larger discussion, but there's a bigger problem. Children like Batman and Joker. They like comic books. These are historically things for kids, and despite the film's R rating, children will want to see Joker on screen this way. Because they may see their parents excited about it, because adults like the Joker too, and those parents may take their kids to the movie. And well, We don't need to paint the whole picture. And it's a shame that this situation exists. For some audiences, the thought of parents taking kids to see this is ridiculous. It'll happen, though. It doesn't mean we should all be deprived of a movie as a result. But it is something to consider when a movie is conceived of. Maybe? Warner Brothers has not had any merchandising associated with the film, so on some level, they obviously get it. And let's also be clear. People will see this movie in droves. It's spurring the conversation, it's winning awards, but we propose it's worth considering the reasons why. There's an excellent review of the film on Deadspin that places this movie squarely in the context of today. Todd Phillips' comments about woke culture and the inability to be effective in comedy due to it spurred the comedy community to discuss, at length all over Twitter, if such a thing were true. We're at a point where a problematic director who damns the very Writers Guild he is a member of is upset because people are upset by his, on the surface, problematic choices. It's okay to have this discussion, right? It would be nice to have the filmmaker join the discussion more actively. Joker also exists because of IP, intellectual property. It's safe to say that this movie only gets made if you pitch it as, it stars the Joker in a way you've never seen him before. That's troubling for the aforementioned reasons. Imagine what it would be like if this movie wasn't built around the Joker, but more like Taxi Driver. Does that still work? Do people still see it? Forgetting that it would be much harder to fund. What a dumb argument. Joker isn't John Wick. Video game movies and their source material don't inspire shootings the way certain pundits and politicians would like you to think they do. We're also not saying the violence on screen is in and of itself a problem. What may fuel the potential for another Aurora-level shooting or very contested threat on social media is the way the type of subject matter is seemingly glorified despite its problematic nature. The way Phillips dismisses people's criticisms of it and doesn't feel responsible. One would think Phillips would enjoy that he has started a conversation. To quote Aaron Sorkin, everyone has a right to speak, but not everyone has the right to a microphone. Well, in this case, a website. Or in Phillips' case, the right to invalidate others' concerns and thoughts and feelings simply because he is unable or unwilling to understand, respect, or accept them. I personally do not wish to validate this worldview with my money at the box office. In my opinion, there are better ways to spend my cash and time. Joker is both an arsonist and a fireman in a whole new kind of fire, and it's hard to tell if there's a good reason or any reason behind it. It seems plausible that some men do indeed just want to watch the world burn. So this writer must be psychic because he's not seen this film, but he knows everything about it. I've read a lot of terrible articles on this channel, but this is the absolute worst. From the repeated use of the word problematic, to the straw man arguments, to the flat-out fear-mongering, this piss-poor piece of published putrefaction exists solely for one reason: to be ripped to shreds. Before I get too angry, and believe me, you'll love me when I'm angry, I'd like to take a moment to bring to light a very problematic issue with this article. The overuse of the word problematic. Problematic is a crutch word. It's like when you cuss to fill in a fucking gap. And I'm not the only one who feels this way. According to the Columbia Spectator, problematic provides no specificity, no critique, and no instruction. And the LA Times has an article that states, problematic is the rallying cry of sanctimonious posturing, and much of what is deemed problematic is really just complicated. It's interesting, in a less fragile and reactionary culture, we might call these things worthy of discussion. But discussion, where people take turns talking and listening, has gone out of style. It may just be me, but it sounds an awful lot like this writer. Now, a lot of questions arise from this article, and I'd like to take just a moment to talk about them. First off, who is this movie for? Tell me who Brie Larson's Unicorn Store is for. Tell me who Ghostbusters 2016 is for. Tell me who all these terrible remakes and reboots are for, and get back with me later. Or never. Don't care. This movie is for the audience. It's something different for the comic book genre. It's not Marvel with jokes galore, one-liners, and pop culture references. This is different. And to answer the question of Joker violence, have you ever read a comic book? The Joker is a very violent character. And you know what? Let's take a moment to look at some of his most grisly moments. When he beat Jason Todd with a crowbar. When he skinned Monty alive. When he shot Barbara Gordon through the spine and violated her. Sexually. When he had his own face removed. When his actions led to Harvey Dent's face being half destroyed. When he burned half of Alex Luthor's face off before shooting him with a shotgun. When he took Superman's hand through the chest. And finally, when he snaps his own neck in The Dark Knight Returns. So this sort of shuts down that argument too. Look, the Joker is and has always been a violent maniac. When Batman's adapted for kids, they tone it down, of course, but he's still doing a lot of killing. A lot of killing. To understand the Joker better, we have to look at who actually buys comic books. According to Newsarama, the average age of the comic book reader is 35 years old. At 35, I'm pretty sure the violence you're warning about is pretty common. Also, this film is rated R, which means it's not for kids. I know that this writer thinks it's a civic duty to remind us of his moral superiority, but what's the actual argument? What are you trying to do? No film school never went after Deadpool. There were no issues with that film, and it too was rated R, with sex and violence and copious dick jokes. I smell a double standard. Joker is not the only casualty of this kind of bias, just the most recent. A few weeks back, Rambo Last Blood suffered similarly at the hands of these people. And just a few weeks before that, the Powerless Posse went after Dave Chappelle's stand-up special, Sticks and Stones. The best place to find this aggregated bullshit is over on Rotten Tomatoes, a site that has severely declined in credibility since 2017. Today we're going to look at the discrepancies between professional critics and the audience. Now, critics liking something the audience doesn't isn't anything new, but Joker, Rambo, and Chappelle aren't just being judged on their merit or lack thereof, but by the political slant of the critic. So first up we have Dave Chappelle, Sticks and Stones. The critics gave it a 35%, the audience a 99%. With critics saying things such as Sticks and Stones registers as a temper tantrum, the product of a man who wants it all, money, fame, influence, without much having to answer to anyone. They also say that Sticks and Stones exist as a defiant design to intentionally offend large swaths of the audience. Chappelle's deemed too thin-skinned and easily outraged, while serving up simple, low-bar yucks to anyone yearning for validation of their anti-PC stance. Rambo Last Blood has a 27% tomato meter from the critics and an 82% audience score, with critics saying such stupid things as, "It is less an escapist action movie and more a dramatized manifestation of the most notorious sentences of Donald Trump's presidential campaign announcement speech." Joker has a smaller divide, with 68% tomato meter from the critics and a 90% audience score, with critics saying such stupid things as, "It's unclear if the movie thinks that the Joker doesn't know that his statement is political or the film itself doesn't understand its own political nature." Or this one that says, "A derivative movie that exploits mental illness and violence." To show the inverse of the situation, Captain Marvel has a 78% tomato meter and 54% from the audience. With such comments as, "For Marvel, there's a new boss in town." And this really out there one that says, "Superhero cinema has lectured us, ad infinitum, on the responsibility that is conferred by extraordinary gifts. Praise be to Larson for reminding us they can be bringers of fun." I don't even know what movie they watched. And finally, Star Wars The Last Jedi has a 91% tomato meter score and an audience score of 44%, with reviews saying, "The devoted will no doubt be delighted. For the rest, a resigned acceptance may be the safest path to enjoyment." It's not a very ringing endorsement there, is it? There's definitely an elitism bias towards certain types of films that promote a stilted worldview. The first time I recall such a prominent difference was with Star Wars The Last Jedi, as I just mentioned. They tried every play in the book of excuses to find a reason why there was such a divide, and at the end of the day, it was just a bad film. So I guess that it's just a bad movie, and that bad movies don't usually make a lot of money. And, oh, looks like audiences do love that Joker. And the Joker is getting the last laugh.
Let the good times roll!
So that's it for today, folks. What did you think about this whole Joker situation? This was too big for me not to cover on this channel. Now, admittedly, I haven't seen the film yet. I do plan on seeing it. I'm just waiting to see it until next week. But I'm very excited for it. I remember the first time I heard about the film, I thought, Taxi Driver, Joker, Scorsese's the producer. Okay. Then I saw the image at first, and I was like, nope, I hate the face paint. I don't like this design. Then the trailer dropped, and that all changed. I've been on board with Joker since I saw that first trailer, and I've been very excited. And you know what? I've actually been on board with DC for quite some time. Now, since Wonder Woman's come out, I've enjoyed every DC film, and yeah, I didn't think Justice League was terrible. Didn't think it was great either. But I didn't think it was the dumpster fire that a lot of people claim it to be. It was just okay. Much better than Man of Steel. Much, much better than Batman v Superman, and infinitely better than the Suicide Squad, which is probably the worst superhero movie made in the last 10 years. I can never watch it again. But when it comes to films like Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Shazam, I've enjoyed those, and now Joker is going to be added to that list. And I think that DC's on a pretty good roll. Is it enough to take down Marvel? No, not necessarily now, but in the future it is possible. We've seen all the controversy with Spider-Man leaving the MCU, then coming back, then we don't even know where he's going to end up. It's weird, it's rights issues, but DC has the luxury of Warner Brothers, their parent company, owning all the properties. So any character can pop up. There's no behind-the-scenes drama that needs to happen. And remember, folks, we're just a few short years removed, 7 to be exact, from when Christopher Nolan's Batman films still reigned supreme at the box office. And who makes more money at the box office always flips. It used to be only DC because they only made DC films that hit the theaters. Then at the end of the 90s and the early 2000s, we had Blade, we had X-Men, we had Spider-Man break all sorts of records. And Spider-Man really was the superhero of the early 2000s. Then Batman Begins came out, started to change things, and The Dark Knight changed everything. And then everything changed to be The Dark Knight. And then The Avengers came out and changed everything. And just like The Dark Knight, everything changed to be The Avengers. How many shared universe films have we had that really never went anywhere because they didn't plant the seeds properly and build the foundation right? All but the Marvel movies. But, unlike the DC films, the Marvel films have had a conclusion. And it was a good conclusion. And if people want more superhero movies, maybe the DC alternative is the right way to go right now. I mean, Joker made a lot of money at the box office. $96 million in its first 3 days domestically, and $247 million worldwide. Now compare that to the first 3 days where Spider-Man Far From Home only made $92 million in its first 3 days. But it was a holiday weekend, which they judge differently. They tack on more days to make the box office seem beefier. But 3 days to 3 days, it's pretty damn good for Joker. Now, like I said, I haven't seen this film. I don't really have a bias towards DC over Marvel. If you were to look at my collection of comics, merchandise, t-shirts, it's a pretty heavy Marvel slant. I have more Marvel stuff than almost anything. Spider-Man, X-Men, some Avengers stuff. But I do have a love for Batman. And the Joker is my favorite comic book villain. Hell, he might be my favorite fictional villain, just next to Darth Vader and maybe Hans Gruber. I really have to think about that. We'll talk about it in another video. But all the drama that surrounded this film was for naught. There were no shootings, there was no violence. We're so worried about everything. So worried in the fact that we make things up to be worried about. And it's getting dumber and dumber every day. So I want to know what you guys think in the comments below. Did you like Joker? Did you see Joker? And do you think all this controversy and drama helped the box office? Like I said, I don't know, but I will know next week and expect a review then. I'm happy to see a different type of comic book film. You know, the build-up to Suicide Squad was all about, the narrative during the build-up to Suicide Squad was all about how Jared Leto was going to be the best Joker and turn it on its ear and make it different from Heath Ledger, and how it was the Joker we all needed and deserved and blah, 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 and all that other horse shit. And then we saw the film, and it sucked, and Jared Leto is no longer the Joker, thankfully. And then Joaquin Phoenix rolls in, and it seems like he could possibly be the best. I've heard a lot of praise for the role, and it's funny. Joker roles post Heath Ledger, and I know there's only been one other one, but people are always talking about Oscar contention now, and we'll see next year if that's the case. But that's it for today, folks, so thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and share it all over social media. If you're a fan of this channel and you want more of us, and by more I mean an extra podcast each Thursday, movie commentaries, possible t-shirts, posters, and appearances on the channel, well, join our Patreon page. $1 a month goes a long way, but $5, which is only 17 cents a day, gives you access to all those things and a lot more the higher you go. That is patreon.com/worldclassbs. If you like the community aspect and you want to hang out on Facebook, we have a couple of groups over there, so find us over there. It's the best way currently to get interaction with us and the other members of our community. And it's a lot of fun, so if you want fun, and I know you do, join us over there. So folks, I'm going to head out for today, but thank you for watching, and as always, be excellent to each other.